The sun was setting when Caleb Vance rode into Hollow Creek, but the town was unwelcoming long before he reached the main street. There was dust in the air, as if warning him not to come inside. The windows of the buildings were shut up so tight for a town that called itself peaceful. Even the wind sounded nervous, knowing it would have been best not to say anything. It had been years since Caleb found himself in a place like this. He used to be a lawman, but after that he was a bounty hunter. These days, however, he was somewhere in between, depending on who you asked. Hollow Creek was different, though. This town wasn't just silent, it was watching. Caleb pulled his horse up by the sheriff's office. The wooden sign groaned a little, as if exhausted from hanging there. Inside, Sheriff Dugan looked up from his paperwork, the kind of look someone gives when they know a storm is coming. "Caleb Vance?" Sheriff Dugan asked. "Depends on who's asking." Dugan smirked at him. "I'm asking. We've got ourselves a predicament. This fellow Eli Mercer is going to be hung in 3 days. Your job is to ensure that nothing interferes." Finally, Caleb walked inside. "I don't work for free." Dugan handed him an old paper. "You will for this one. The town council will pay. Mercer shot down one of our deputies and took the entire shipment of gold. He was caught in the act." Caleb picked the paper from the table and skimmed through it with a neutral face. Wanted posters were always very straightforward. Too straightforward. "And what if I refuse?" Caleb asked. Dugan settled himself back on the chair. "Then you'll just leave, and someone else will fill your spot. You see, however, there's something you should know. People around here don't care for second opinions." The last sentence lingered on his mind longer than he liked. When he reached Eli Mercer, the fellow was already half dead. They kept him in a holding cell behind the sheriff's office. He had blood streaked across his temple. His hands were shaking, not because he was afraid, but because he was tired. But when Eli lifted his gaze, there was something unflinching in his eyes. It wasn't guilt, nor was it innocence. It was something else entirely. "A hired gun?" Eli questioned. "No, I am no longer a hired gun." Eli let out a weak, strained chuckle. "That is twice for you, too." Caleb studied him intently. "I heard you killed one of their deputies." "I never did," Eli responded sharply. He had no doubt in his words. Too sharp, too honest, or perhaps just too used to it. "And the gold?" "Never laid my eyes on it. I was hunting down the thief." Caleb shifted his gaze a little bit. Most men in the cell were innocent. Most lied, but most did not look as exhausted. "Don't waste your breath," Caleb said. "I'm not here to judge you." Eli reached out as much as his chain bindings allowed him to do. "Then don't be fair. Instead, be a man who is listening before he fires the gun." In the outside world, gossip about Caleb was starting to spread like wildfire. Hollow Creek had a special way of whispering without moving its lips. Caleb knew this by the people averting their eyes from him, the way mothers kept their kids inside when Caleb was walking past, and by the way the conversation would stop whenever he approached. On the second day, Caleb started to see some discrepancies. The body of the deceased deputy was found differently than how the witnesses described it. 3 different handlers transported the shipment of gold that had been stolen, but only one of the 3 was interviewed. Most perplexingly, the sheriff denied Caleb access to the crime scene.
"Case is closed," Dugan stated authoritatively. "This time around, you should prevent any trouble, not dig into some old dirt." "That's funny about dirt because it tends to get dug no matter what," Caleb replied. That night, Caleb headed to the outskirts of town where the deputy met his fate. The scene was described as cleaned up, but there were still too many traces left behind. There were drag marks near the creek bed that contradicted the official version of events. It had been staged. Caleb bent down to brush some soil between his fingers. Behind him, there was a whisper-like voice. "You shouldn't be here right now." Caleb turned around slowly. The woman wore a ragged-looking shawl. She stood close to the trees. Grief made her face look familiar to him. "Hello, I am Mara. Deputy Cole was my brother." She introduced herself. "What do you think? Did Mercer kill your brother?" For a moment she kept silent. Silence was louder than anything. "I think the town itself chose its killer," she answered eventually. Caleb looked at her for a while. "It may be dangerous to say so out loud." "I don't care anymore about what's dangerous," she said. "I just want the truth." For the first time since Caleb arrived, the ground seemed to give way underneath his feet. The following day brought new developments. It became known that Caleb had spent time around the creek. That made the people of this town very angry. There was one thing they could tolerate about Caleb. There was one thing they would not tolerate. That evening, Caleb received an anonymous letter under his door. "Quit digging, or you'll be swinging alongside us from the gallows soon enough." No signature required. He understood well enough what people in places like this would do if they felt threatened, but he did not stop investigating. In fact, he returned to see Eli. "You tracked the gold," Caleb said. Eli nodded. "Harlan Pierce. He transports the freight from the North Pass. I caught him shipping gold in a different direction." "The deputy?" Eli's jaw clenched. "He was supposed to meet me that night with evidence, but he never showed up. One day I woke up to find myself in shackles." Caleb sighed. Harlan Pierce. The reason being, it made too much sense. Pierce was one of the richest men in the town, one of those men who constructed churches on one hand and bribed judges with the other. And Caleb could feel it then, how truth formed in all its ugliness and sharpness. But truth had no place in a town like Hollow Creek. It was power, and power was about to come after him. It started that same night, a gunshot from the direction of his window. Before he could even think, Caleb was on the ground behind his bed as glass shattered above his head. The bullet pierced right into the wall where his head had been just a few seconds before. He did not give chase yet, not for now, for he knew already whose warning it was. By morning, the word would be out in Hollow Creek. "Leave Eli Mercer alone, or else you're next." But Caleb had learned in his life how to do one thing, how to fear someone who feared that he might run. For there was no more running for him, because it was not just about Eli anymore. It was about all the town's secrets. But there was clearly no stone unturned in ensuring that it remained hidden. Caleb approached Dugan early one morning. "Of course you knew," Caleb murmured. Dugan didn't look up. "What did I know?" "That Mercer hadn't murdered your deputy." A moment's silence. "And then," said Dugan, "you obviously don't get the way things work here." "I know more about this place than you think." Finally, Dugan looked up, his eyes weary and lined. "Pierce owns half of this county," Dugan said. "He supports the council, the bank, the trade routes. Bring him down, and you take everything down." "And so you framed a man who wasn't even guilty?" Dugan said nothing more. He didn't have to. Caleb turned toward the door. "Step out that door," Dugan warned, "and you're not safe anymore." Caleb halted. "It's been a while since I've had any protection." As noon neared, the village took on a new shape. Groups of men congregated along the road, not threatening yet, but soon, watching, waiting. Caleb strode directly to the jail. Eli looked up upon his arrival. "They're going to kill you," Eli stated matter-of-factly. "Most likely," Caleb said. "And why is that?" Caleb released the lock of the cell. "Because you're innocent," he replied without hesitation. Eli paused before the chains were removed. "Is that all?" Caleb stared into his eyes. "It's sufficient." The village erupted before reaching the main road. Rifle shots rang out from the rooftop. Glass shattered on one of the windows. Someone screamed Caleb's name as an insult. They weren't attempting to capture him anymore. They were aiming to obliterate him. Caleb hurried Eli to hide behind the water trough. "Run," Caleb urged. "And what will you do?" Eli inquired. Caleb slid a cartridge into the chamber of his weapon.
I intend to end this." Eli shook his head. "They will pursue you endlessly." Caleb offered a weak grin. "They have been." He walked alone out into the street. The town which had once employed him had decided that he had to die. There, at the end of the road, stood Sheriff Dugan with guns on either side. "This is it, Caleb," shouted Dugan. "Not yet, only just beginning." From the balcony of the bank came Harlan Pierce, watching Caleb as a man watches cattle. "Aren't you going to kill yourself for this?" shouted Pierce. Caleb glanced up at him. "Never, but I'll kill you." And there began the breaking. Shots rang out. Caleb moved not like a man expecting to live another day, but like a dead man. He fought not like the town. He cut through the lie. Some died. Some were not even evil, nor even afraid, but nothing mattered. Fear could not stop a bullet, and neither could loyalty. Caleb reached the bottom of the bank's steps just as one hit him in the side. He cried out as agony flooded his body, but still he did not fall. Above, Pierce shouted in fear. And there was Eli, not running away, not trying to hide, standing on the wide street. "Stop," shouted Eli. "I can show you." The fight was paused, didn't stop, just faltered. Eli produced a ledger. Cole was murdered by Pierce because he had uncovered that Pierce had diverted the gold, and here is his documentation. A heavy silence settled, a silence even gunfire seemed afraid of. Dugan seemed caught between believing and living. Pierce's expression turned grim. "Those documents are fake," Pierce spat back. His words lacked conviction. Caleb eyed Eli, then the townsfolk. "It's your decision," Caleb spoke roughly. "Your truth or him." For a few moments, no one moved. Then one dropped his weapon. Another dropped his, one after another. No victory, just fatigue. Pierce tried to escape. Caleb blocked him. Needed only one shot. No fireworks, no heroics, just done. The town was quiet by nightfall, but not in the usual way. Not tranquil, just abandoned. Eli Mercer lounged on the jailhouse steps, an exonerated man, but not one who was celebrated. Sheriff Dugan had resigned without uttering a single word. Caleb Vance lingered at the town's edge, bleeding slowly while surveying the destruction he wrought to redeem a man no one else thought was worth the effort. Mara appeared beside him quietly. "You should have fled," she said. Caleb just shook his head slightly. Otherwise, it would all happen again. "You will be chased for your actions," she warned. He gazed ahead, his gaze fixed upon the distant skyline. "Good," he whispered. "They can finally know the reason." As he rode away from Hollow Creek, no one tried to stop him. Not because they pardoned his actions, because for once in their lives, they did not have anything else left to chase anymore.